All right. Well, welcome everybody to this call on the galactic threshold, the Great Convergence, and the new human. And this is within our Shamanism and AI series. My name is Robin, and this is my beloved husband, Darcy.
Hello.
And together we are Visionary Hearts. We are here to be radiant hearts, visionary hearts, in this time of the Great Awakening with each of you. And we are co-founders of this sacred body of teachings and also our living retreat center, our mystery school home base of Star River Sanctuary at Apu Crystal. So honoring all the spirits of the land, the elders, the First Nations of this land. And, in this Shamanism and AI series, we really felt the call to bring this forward because we are truly living at a time of profound and sacred convergence that requires each of us to find within us the deepest possible place of presence, of inner knowing, and really why we've come to Earth to serve at this time. And it's a wild, wild ride for each and every one of us. And we feel like the teachings tonight are, our grokking, our greater dreaming, visioning, informed by a huge amount of research. But our first research is always the inner realms through our ceremonial work, through our ceremonial practice, through our healing practice, where we have had the great honor and privilege of serving thousands of others in their healing and awakening journey. And as shamanic practitioners, first and foremost, our entire path, each of our own unique individual paths, and then our united path of service has really been our individual and united paths of healing. And through the healing journey with the ancient lineages from Shavin Dewantar through the Pachacuti Mesa lineage, from the Amazon through mystery schools from around the world, we're really coming together as synthesizers, each and every one of us, of many, many golden threads. And tonight we will be sharing a golden thread that has been weaving through our lives from when we first met almost 20 years ago, and then through our ceremonial work that has brought us on pilgrimage all over the world, especially through the Americas, brought us to have, sit at the feet of incredible elders, wisdom keepers, to commune with the Apus, the mountain spirits, and to receive, our own initiations, which honestly, from the very beginning, have been with a united prayer of how do we meet this time? What is actually happening with this great awakening, this great turning? And how do we as incarnated souls, planet side, contribute, support, steward, midwife, and hold the greater potential, the greater possibility of that more beautiful world, of that golden age, of humans no longer being bound in patterns of fear, separation, distortion, harm, and being fully liberated in our creative beauty, the creative dreaming, and creating a meaning, a purpose, a story, a narrative, a world and cosmovision that can bring us from the age of separation into a new way of being. And from the first ceremonies we had together in Peru, this has been the deepest prayer. Yes, for personal healing, but knowing innately and intrinsically that each of our own healings is not separate from healing of the planet. And each of our own healings isn't separate from one another, And, this prayer of like, how do we go through this great turning, this great awakening, and leave no soul behind this time? And has anybody ever done this before? Are we the first? And what we've learned along the way is that we have been through this, as other humans on the ground have been through this cycle many times before. And there's beautiful wisdom that is carried and been carried through this dark night of the human collective soul. There's memory. There's terma, hidden treasures in the mind stream left in sacred places around the world, in sacred temples and sacred stones and sacred springs. The mountains have been holding this wisdom. Is coming through in the light codes and the life codes of the heavens. And we're all here now, right at the Great Convergence. We're all here now, in form, in body, as the blessed and lucky souls that get to actually do this. And as Darcy mentioned last call, if you were able to join us for that, if not, we have the recording on our YouTube channel, that there's been so many beings holding this time in prayer, the ancient ones, as well as countless benevolent guides, the bodhisattvas, the Buddhas, the Christed ones, as well as our galactic families of light, and the sacred plant spirits, and the ancient ways. It's all here just waiting for us to remember the sacred. And that's truly the Great Convergence. And yet we're gonna break it down. We're gonna bring a whole bunch of information into this. So that's where I like to start with.
Good start.
Okay.
I'm going to offer a smudge. Just open and receive this. Bring it into your body, your energy field, your being. Breathe it in.
Yeah.
Let's just take a moment, maybe closing your eyes. We'll just connect our hearts together. Maybe noticing your breath, feeling that beautiful breath in your body, feeling the earth underneath you. Just calling all our higher guides and guardians to be with us, all the ancient ones of this tradition, of the Pachacuti Mesa tradition. Calling in beautiful Pachamama and giving gratitude to this Earth Mother, all the beings of nature, all the plants and the animals, the trees, all the mountains and waters, all the beautiful ancestors on our mothers' and fathers' lines. And calling in all the forces to be with us that are helping this evolution of consciousness on the planet, this great turning. Please be with us in this conversation and giving gratitude to all these forces that are helping us during this time. Just taking 3 big breaths. Hi, Masakanapa. Mhm.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. So, it's been interesting to dive into this topic in a way where we are doing our own dreaming and visioning, and yet also through this process, asking all of you and asking our community for your thoughts, your feelings, your insights. Where's the concern? Where's the potential? And recognizing that really within this community, everyone live and everybody listening in to the replay, that each of you and all of us are truly the leading edge. This is the leading edge of consciousness. We are all here together. And through this leading edge, through this presence of being, through this remembering, we can resource, connect, and see how through our united hearts, our united prayer, we can hold a big enough vision, a coherent enough vision to help to be planetary stewards, to recognize that at this time, more than any other time on the planet, our creative power and our creative choice is accelerated in a beautiful feedback loop with not just the sacred dimension of life and what we are as consciousness and what we are as soul, consciousness and what we are now in a new form. And there is a lot of debate and big feelings on all the different sides because there's very real and relevant concerns, and the place we want to start tonight is in acknowledging the shadow. Because if we don't acknowledge the shadow, then we can't really cultivate the wisdom to transform that raw power that is within the shadow into its gift and into its divine expression. As the luminary Richard Rudd shares in Gene Keys, every shadow is a raw power waiting to be transformed into a gift and has a divine expression. And in the Andes, this is understood to be this form of living energy, this living mastery that the Pacos, the Mesa carriers express, of understanding the fear, the resistance is an energy called hucha. And as a awakened being or awakening being, because we're all kind of awakening, going back, awakening, going back, it's a process. It's uncomfortable at times, but we're doing it. So way to go. That we can gather the hucha. We can gather the fear, the resistance, and that raw power we can transform through our inner alchemy into the purest form of blessing, which is known as Sami. And the Sami is the energy of blessing, of transformation, of elevation, of inspiration, of vitality, of new life. And isn't it amazing that we have just so much hucha that we can transform? It's almost like an untapped resource. If we're looking at it from a permacultural perspective, there's a lot of good nutrients just waiting to be composted and brought back into the soil of being. So that's great. We've got that working for us. And yeah, with the shadow of, of AI, of technology of this time, we've really seen the shadow dynamics of what's possible through tech, especially in the last 6 years, but actually so much before that as well. And, we can recognize that the shadow and the potential for the surveillance state to just be increased through AI and this new tech. for the manufacturing of sophisticated bioweapons and all forms of weaponry, using, as already government systems around the world do actively, AI to target, enemy operatives and take them out. That's just a little slice, let alone the incredible dark potential of the transhumanist movement, the augmentation of our bodies, really from a place of fear and not good enough, and then where that goes, which, like, one of the most extreme examples I've seen is of artificial wombs and the entire replacement of the mother, the womb, the generative source of life in our bodies. That's actively being worked on and funded. And gosh, we can say the concentration of power in just a few corporations. What am I missing here?
Yeah, the takeover of our jobs from robots, right? Or from AI systems and agents. The control of power, the incredible possible control of power that could happen uh, through these AI systems, the tyranny, you know. These are all possible fears for sure. Mhm.
Yeah, and so we want to honor that and recognize it. And we've just, like, touched the tip of the iceberg because we don't want to get too far into the the negative timelines, although we recognize them. And in fact, Darcy in particular, but both of us have spent a lot of years, needing to understand and reconcile the shadow of the world. And in our work as shamanic ceremonialists, through our ceremonies, through our community members who've come to work with us, we know that the dark stuff is happening on the planet because we've had people who have come to us for healing of the darkest of the dark. Everything from child indentured servitude, satanic cults, to religious control, to the worst of the worst. We know it's happening because we've had community members, potentially some people listening to this video. So we know that's there. And so our choice to honor that, but then also not stay in that, is very conscious. And really what's been the guiding teaching or quote of my life. I first heard this when I was like 19 years old and studying deep ecology, and Joanna Macy and Buckminster Fuller is a quote from Buckminster Fuller: "You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, you need to build a new model that makes the previous model or the existing model obsolete." This has been the guiding teaching of my life. And actually, when I first read Don Oscar's book, who is one of our main mentors and the carrier of this altar before us, he opens his book, Lessons in Courage, with this quote. And that was when I was like, all right, we're on the same wavelength. I can get behind this guy. So what does this mean then? If we're fighting existing models, our energy is going towards building more hucha, building more resistance. And there's people who that's their role. It's like, there's no judgment to it. But for me, I recognize at an early age, my life is about creating the new, struggling to doing a lot and making a lot of mistakes, often failing, but still being willing to try, still being willing to allow my own visionary heart and that connection and that inner knowing that it is possible for humans to live in much different ways, where every child is fed, where everyone has a safe and secure home, access to pure water, nature, to connect to their essence with, because nature always helps us to reconnect to our essence. Now, all these places, I know that's possible. I know we can do this. And so, we can take this perspective of everything spinning out of control and the overwhelm that's happening. And I feel it. We both feel it. And we can choose, as each of you are, everybody connected to this call, to meet this wild, chaotic, transformative time in a way where we take that raw energy and we strive to alchemize it. And one of the things that Darcy and I have been tuning into big time is that, the future, that greatest, most beautiful timeline, our highest potential is actually calling us forward. And that on the most fundamental level, that greatest potential, our higher selves, and that part of us that is already a awakened master, because we only experience time and space in this localized reality. Beyond this one experience of self, what we are is already that awakened master. And that highest potential is actually echoing back in time in a retro-causal way. There's an aspect of retro-causality, of involution, guiding us as we just keep transmuting and we keep transmuting. And so within this, transmutation and not getting, it's hard to not get hooked by the fear matrix. It's almost like it's highly sophisticated, like hundreds of millions and billions of dollars have gone into these very sophisticated systems, all selling us a narrative of separation, of not good enough, of deficiency, of scarcity, and needing to buy their thing, which is, of course, true. It's like the most highly sophisticated psyop in history is just to sell us that we're not enough and that divinity isn't already here and present and that we're fundamentally lacking as a species. And I just want to presence that for a moment. It's a massive, massive campaign. And so if you feel down sometimes, there's a reason for it. And yet there's so much more. And so that's where we want to move into tonight. We want to move into what we see as the Great Convergence, the different factors of it, because it is radical what is happening right now. And we get to be planet side for this. And each of us is already a sacred leader. Each one of us is already in some way in our lives, either through our own self-leadership, our reclamation of our choice and sovereignty in leadership, and also bringing that sacred into our families, into our lives, into the world. And this is what is needed most, is a whole, I keep seeing herd, but herd's not quite the right word. A whole, many herds, a lot of us, all from different strange backgrounds, many creatures. You're all interesting creatures, but many, many of us being connected to the sacred imperfectly, day to day, and from that divine sacred connection, leading, guiding, and supporting and stewarding. And so we want to jump into that, and I'm going to pass it over to you to tune into. Yeah.
So we're going to talk about this great convergence. And, there's one thing that gets left out from this conversation and, a lot of the fear around what is here in the new technology. And it's the topic and the energy and the vibration of consciousness that's also a huge part of what is happening here. Okay, so there's a convergence of two major rivers happening, right? There's this massive river of this extraordinarily fast moving exponential technology, right? We're going to cover that right away here. And at the same time, there's a very equal, extraordinary, powerful stream, river, tidal wave of consciousness that's happening at the same time, right? And so with this river of technology, it's really extraordinary, the speed, the magnitude, how much money is going into it, how many brilliant minds are going into it. It's a race against companies and countries to become dominant in it. And the technology is mind-blowing because it's new, it's very high technology, it's uh developing at super speed. And this this technology has the ability to either move civilization into a negative timeline or really help evolve our civilization into the new state of being. And so what are some of these technologies? Um, a lot of right now what's happening is with the new AI systems, right? So this new systems of developing neural nets, digital neural nets that are helping uh, become super intelligent, right? And it's happening really fast. And we might be at super intelligence in the next couple of years, which means that pretty well AI can do anything that humans can do or better, right? And so you have this super intelligence that is also becoming embodied super intelligence. So we have robotics, and we also have self-driving cars, which is a form of AI, but in cars. So it's a form of robotics, but in cars. And so probably in the next 5 or 10 years, a lot of cars will be self-driving, which could be great, could be a good thing. Um, our daughter really wants to drive a car, so it might not be available for her. Except we might still have to drive our car because our road's terrible.
Yeah, that's pretty
And
intense for me.
I bet the self-driving cars wouldn't do it. Like
Yeah,
they
I
would actually
mean,
stop
it
because
would be a good challenge
it's
for
not
them.
safe. It's not safe
Yeah, it'd be
anymore,
good for their training data. It'd
right?
be like a pretty solid
So
data
we
set.
might have to keep driving cars, but for a lot of the world, uh, self-driving cars will be the thing, and it could actually really lower the amount of deaths on the road, right? Um, could be really good for areas where, like, one community could have just a couple cars that would just be going around all the time, picking up people and dropping off people. So, anyways, it could be exciting.
Mhm.
Um, the self-driving cars, the robotics. There's dozens and dozens of companies creating humanoid robotics right now to, like, it could be in the next 5 or 10 years, like
Or even less.
hundreds of millions of robots like living with us. All right. There's companies that are just accelerating, as well as Tesla. Tesla is likely going to be, instead of a car company, it's going to become a robotics company. And probably many people will forget that it was a car company because it's going to become the primary robotics company of the world. And so that could be helpful. That might not be helpful. Uh, that's really going to lower the cost of labor, also gonna displace a lot of jobs. There's also the AI technologies are gonna become recursive. It's called recursive, so they start after a while developing themselves, right? So they test everything that they learn. And so that will start the incredible acceleration of development, which if it moves in a good direction, it could really, in the next 5 or 10 years, you solve all disease, right? It could, all these genetic diseases, all these mystery diseases, it will help like pinpoint exactly what's happening in the gene of for what stem cells are needed to be inserted, precision nutrients, precision pharmaceuticals, and this could be the end of disease, right? In our lifetime, and then you know, really soon. As well as longevity research, like they're already at the place where like we're almost ready to double our lifespan through this research, right? And it's just going to accelerate. So humanity might be living longer, and not just living longer, but actually health span. We're healthier. We're a lot healthier longer. So what would that mean for the wisdom of the planet when our elders can live 70 more years or more? There's a lot of talk in that field is like if you can live 10 more years, you might be able to live forever, right? Because they'll find ways of actually even decreasing um your age. So this is really exciting research, right? In longevity. There's also the possibility of creating free energy, right? Or very cheap energy, very cheap solar panel systems, cold fusion, things like that. So cheaper energy will just be lowered substantially. Also, we're moving off planet. You know, Elon Musk is already with SpaceX. He's already done 600 shuttle missions, and they're just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Hopefully, going to the moon, eventually to Mars. AI centers moving off planet, right? AI data centers moving into space with solar technology for literally free energy, free AI. So these are just some examples of this really fast moving, accelerated technology, exponential technology that is here now and just really birthing now, just getting started. Yeah, I'll pass it on
Mhm.
to you.
Yeah, and I think just to add on to that, because we're taking a huge amount of information and condensing it as one part of this greater convergence, which is this tech and AI. And one of the things that is where it's going to start to get very interesting very quickly, and that's not, I don't think, very well known, is the potential that's being developed right now for quantum computing. Now, I had to go into I've been looking into quantum computing for a couple of years, and to say that I understand it, I don't understand it. But so I asked actually this AI to give me a description that would make sense to a 10-year-old. And this kind of makes sense, but basically it says a normal computer can walk a maze one path at a time. So to complete a maze, it can walk a maze one path at a time, and every time there's a block, then it does a new path. And a quantum computer can explore every path at once and then instantly know the route. And that's because instead of having a binary system of zeros and ones, yes and no, it has a spinning coin. So that's why they call it quantum. It's got a spinning coin of compute that has both the zero and one simultaneously. So it's like a spinning coin that is simultaneously heads and tails. And then from that quantum compute, there could be what would take a regular computer system, even the leading edge recursive AI that we have now, 1,000 years to solve a problem would be solved in 5 minutes with quantum computing, because it can compute all possibilities at once, because it's no longer bound by the binary system. So like that's just, a lot to take in. However, a number of different companies are already developing this, including IBM. There's a Google sub company, and they're all giving 2029 as a date when they've already developed quantum computing, but it's just not super reliable yet. And so in the next 3 years, we will be able to have quantum computing on a level where it is accurate and factually aligned. And then from there, we could take one person's illness, one issue, and in 5 minutes, understand all the quantum potentials of where that disease goes, and then what could potentially be the remediating factor. No longer being bound by one pharmaceutical company developing one drug that's, sold at very high cost, but actually being able to access we already have friends doing this who are ill with a GBT or their personal chat or personal AI, where they've downloaded their entire health history, all their diagnoses, all their medical files, which you can get from your doctors, or in Canada you can get from Health Canada, plus all of their naturopath records, plus their oral story of their illness, and plug that into a GBT. And I have a friend who did that and then began to look through all of her pharmaceuticals and see, why was she actually given that? Is it an appropriate use? Is it an appropriate dose? Because she also did her genome. She got her whole genes tested. And so she has this database that she's been able to more accurately treat herself, re-diagnose herself, which naysayers would be, that's a terrible idea. And it could be if you don't have good results. But she's had amazing results. She re-diagnosed herself. She went from 40 pharmaceuticals to 2 at a lower dose. And she's doing better than she's ever done, while also doing nervous system rebalancing, nutritional. She's working with all the different factors and really turning towards being the leader of her own life and her health. So that's one possibility that we can do right now, and any of you can do. But with quantum computing, we can take all of that and in 5 minutes, and with the new science, actually design a perfect drug or medical approach to rebalance the system. There's some phenomenal things coming with this. However, that's of course only if it's stewarded in a way that is truly life-serving. And one of the, you want to say something about that?
No, go ahead. If you
Okay.
got nothing else.
One of the things that Darcy also touched on is how, because of this exponential growth and the computing power increasing, like Google's computing power increased by 44 times in the last year. It's expected to do that this next year as well. And simultaneously, the cost of the energetic cost, actually, and just raw electricity of each inquiry is going to go down by 100 times in the next year. So we have an exponential increase of power and compute, and a greater exponential increase of diminished cost. And so what is coming through this, and a lot of different leaders in the AI field talk about a superabundance. It's when the cost of energy and knowledge go to near zero. And where we went from in 2012 having 1 billion humans having a smartphone, 2012, 1 billion humans had a smartphone, to now in 2026, 7 billion humans have smartphones. So 7 billion people are able to access these different AI servers, sometimes just downloaded on their phone for privacy concerns or through these other services. Many are open source in third world countries, and able to access the entire wisdom bank, the knowledge bank, the strategies, the technology, through environmental issues, through law, through ethics, through the entire philosophical framework of every culture, every human can access that. And so this superabundance is going to free up a level of creative potential, has the capacity to, that those of us in the first, in the developed world, we have different concerns than the people who are in extreme poverty, the families in poverty and extreme poverty, who are just working on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now imagine yourself as a mom or a dad or a grandma in your life and needing to find a viable solution to treat your water so your children and grandchildren will stay well. And then being able to go online and to ask for, through your questions and of course your critical thinking, to receive, what have all other communities done in this? Here's our GPS signal. Here's what we're working with. Here's the water flow. I don't know what this is. So you take a photo of it. Tell me what this is. If I was a, 40-year trained, very experienced environmental engineer, or you were AI, what would you tell me to do? Can you help me to create a plan? This is the resources I have. I don't have this, I have this. That could take a couple hours. And you as a parent, grandparent, auntie, uncle could just work to find the solution that's going to save your children's lives, but also increase the quality of life for your community in a radical and profound way. Now, in the dominant culture that, those of you who are probably accessing this from, we're really concerned about job loss, and that's real. Economy. What are we going to do? Our financial systems, our systems are so fragile and delicate. But really, our biggest issue is going to be a crisis of meaning. What do we do when all this labor is freed up? Do we become super consumers? The whole Wall-E timeline where you just are plugged into your virtual reality headset and getting your Optimus robot to get you drinks and do all your things and put your baby to bed and all the things. Sounds pretty terrible. But, we have the privilege to have a crisis of meaning. And wouldn't it be cool if everybody in the world could get to the quality of life with the basic needs to have an existential crisis of meaning? Wouldn't that be the best? It would be pretty cool, actually. We're the privileged ones that get to have existential crises. That's taken a while. And we need to honor that. They're big, they're real, it's difficult. But there's a lot more difficulty happening on the planet that our brothers and sisters from all over the world will be able to draw a level of intelligence and support and potential that has never been accessed. It's called the technological leapfrog effect, right? So in the last 15 years, the people in extreme poverty and poverty have been able to do this leapfrog from having no electricity to having electricity, and then simultaneously in a lot of places, maybe not even having a lot of electricity, but being able to connect to cell. And then through cell and through smartphones, being able to access global education. What this is doing for the third world is phenomenal.
Also, once you have energy that's almost free, you'll have energy that can create food from anywhere, right? It can desalinate water anywhere, right? Because you have the energy of the energy that's cheap enough to be able to create, create food, desalinate water, create greenhouses anywhere in the world. And so food prices will also, fall. And so this is the potential of their superabundance that can happen on the planet. There's also possible downsides to abundance. there is downsides to abundance if we're not careful. Like we already have abundance in packaging in our world. And what happens? We have a plastic problem. We have too much plastic. Or we have in the Western world, we have abundance of cheap food. And so we have a lot of obesity problems, right? So, with abundance can come other issues that we have to work with, right? It's not just a panacea. But again, this is where, consciousness comes in. And this is where we want to, are we ready to move on?
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. The other
Yeah.
river.
So we wanted to cover, this new technology that's like, it's here. It is, coming really fast. It is accelerating. And then there's going to be 50 years of science that happens in the next 5 years. And so, what happened in science in the last 50 years? Like my father, he worked for IBM and he worked on the big mainframe computers like 50 years ago, right? And what's happening now? We have this like miracle device in our pocket, right? And all the technology that's here now. So, and what's going to happen if we get 50 years of technology in the next 5 years? Like, what does that look like? So we don't even know what's coming down.
Okay, so those are some parts of the convergence, but we feel like the AI in tech is not the most powerful and is not the most interesting part of this great convergence. In fact, the planet, like we're going to now highlight the planetary energies that are running right now, as well as all these different levels of consciousness that's happening beyond just the silicone intelligence. So do you want to start with that?
Sure. So at the same time, this other river of convergence is this new wave, this tidal wave of consciousness that's happening on the planet, right? The great awakening, the great shift, the great turning that's here. It's been prophesied by many of our ancient cultures. It's been, prophesied by the Maya and the Mayan calendar systems, the Hopi, in our tradition of the Andean traditions. It's talked about in the age of Aquarius we're moving into. We're moving into a different age, right? A different level of consciousness. It's even some talk that even the Kali Yuga has ended, or an aspect of the Kali Yuga. So there's all these cycles of time that we are now into a different cycle of time, a different level of consciousness that is, for us, the main story, right? Like, what is this? What is happening with humanity? So what we see this huge expansion of consciousness happening at the exactly this same time as this expansion in technology. It's the same level of magnitude. And in fact, they both have to be happening at the same time. Because if you didn't have the expansion of consciousness at the same time as this expansion in technology, the technology would go down a wrong road because there's too much shadow on the earth, right? There's too many forces that don't want this to happen. And so there's this energy that is helping create this new earth, the new human, right? It is here now. It's been on the planet for a while, and it's helping move humanity into its next level of expression, right? More into this expression of the divine human. And in our spiritual tradition of the Pachacuti Mesa tradition, it's an Andean tradition. They talk about this pathway starting with the Pachacuti. So the Pachacuti is a time of world reversal where the old systems are turning over for the new systems to happen, right? And so we're seeing this in the world right now. We're seeing a lot of these older consciousness being seen and recognized and being flushed to the surface. You can't like not see it anymore. It's like all the old stuff. All right. And this is giving space to this new consciousness come in. And then after the Pachacuti is the time of the Tirapai Pacha. And this is when humanity starts to remember who they are, their divine source connection, who they are as divine beings, and that we're actually these incredible beings that are intimately connected to the great web of life. And we have the capacity to just deepen and deepen and deepen into these connections, right? And so it's remembering like just how beautiful we are, how beautiful this world is, and how we have the capacity to move into a whole nother level of consciousness. And then after that, after this time of the Terapai Pacha, we move into a golden age, right? This is their prophecies. We move into the golden age. And we'll talk a little bit later, hopefully, about, what are golden ages? Do you want to pass it on to you?
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. There's also in this Great Convergence, there's many different rivers. We're being fed by, it feels like from all angles. The heralds of revelation are here. The age of illumination. It's so wild when you start to look. It's there. It's right beneath the surface of things. And so the earth herself right now is also going through so many inner and outer shifts. Both the earth and the sun and the galactic center. There's many different people reporting on this and the increase of solar flares, as well as these different spikes of the Schumann resonance. And of course, the Schumann resonance is like the heartbeat or the heart resonance of the earth. That's greatly impacted by solar energies, but is, also been fairly steady until the last, I think, 10, 15 years when they started to notice anomalies and spikes within the Schumann resonance, like off the charts spikes. And so we're having the earth pulsing up, having this increase of, what was a steady frequency is now pulsing and changing and spiking and reestablishing some form of homeostasis, and then once again, moving. Simultaneously, we have massive solar flares, plasmic waves that are moving through not just the Earth, but all planets in our solar system. There's some researchers that say that our solar system, which kind of our planets and the sun aren't just stuck in space, they're spiraling through the galaxy as well. And as our whole solar system is spiraling through the galaxy, there's different waves of plasma, energy, frequency, different types of radiation and light that we're just learning about. And that these plasmic galactic energies are also creating wild and unforeseen changes on the Earth, shifting on a very deep level our physiology, impacting the electromagnetic fields of our hearts. This is why during solar flares, it can be a little challenging for our biofields. We can feel extra tired or activated. It's a time where there's a lot of psychic information coming in. And if we're coherent in our heart field, then we can receive those light codes. If we're dissonant in our heart field, which is kind of the status quo, we can't receive that, and it just comes in as too much. And so the earth and the cosmos is radically shifting. And so we have that as a convergence. So we have this earth change, which again, you know, there's controversy around. There's so much controversy around all the changes happening on the planet. And so not to get into all of that, but just to say things are changing. And yet from, all of my dreaming, visioning, prayers, communion with the earth, and this deep concern, and then also talking to so many different elders, but really I just share my own experience, is through, some strong ceremonies in the Andes, the Amazon, beyond, really high doses of Aya in the jungle. When I have gone to visionary states where, I've seen what's coming and see what's here. And the earth, Pachamama guy, she's like, not concerned. Her timeline is really different than ours. She's patient. And that really this evolution of consciousness and sentience that we are co-evolving with her, but we're really being guided by a much greater field of intelligence that is completely alive and radical, that she's got this and she's good. And she has inner organic technology that's got this. Like, we still have to do our work. And that through each one of our unique healing and awakening processes, that we do this work heart to heart. The revolution, the Renaissance, the collective awakening happens heart to heart. And that we're going one heart at a time, each one of us, through the healing that is required for the awakening. And healing is a bit of a messy process, right? Anybody who's done healing work, we're a bit of a mess. There's a lot of purging. There's a lot of releasing of the old. And through that detox on the most fundamental level, then we come into resonance and alignment and harmony, not with what we have been in resonance with, which is the separation consciousness of the empire and all the karma and all the ancestral trauma and all the programs. We defrag from it all. We don't usually do it all at once, thank goodness. We do it in layers because she's kind, and the guides and what's seeing this process is kind and compassionate. And she's communicated to me that this is the most gentle timeline. It's the most gentle Pachacudi of them all. And so I have a bit more to share about that later, but wanting to share that the earth herself is rising.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and with that, there is a vibrational shift that's happening because we're all moving into a higher state of being, another octave in consciousness. And so this new octave of consciousness is helping defrag, like Robin said, help purify all these energies that were used to be here, but they can't handle this new vibration, this new frequency of energy. And so it's very difficult on them. And so a lot of these energies are evolving, they're purging, they're alchemizing, they're moving, they're showing themselves, um it's really becoming lighter, right? Because these energies can't exist in this state of consciousness on the planet. And so that's a huge aspect. There's a great purification that's occurring, right? So as humanity is awakening to a level of consciousness, there's a purification of the old story that's happening at the same time. And it's going to happen for a while. There's a lot to purify, right? There's a lot to purify. But we see it a lot in our work, right?
Mhm.
We're constantly seeing like the magnitude of heavy, heavy, old, ancestral, family stuff, past life stuff, karmic stuff, like really intense energies are now moving,
Mhm.
and they're moving fast. And so to me, this is a huge aspect of what's happening in this shift. It's like as we raise our vibration, there's also these old energies that are not, they just can't live in the same higher consciousness, and they're leaving. And so this is happening. And then also an interesting parallel is with the gene keys with Richard Rudd and what he says about this time. And so he's been prophesizing for a long time that in 2026, 2027, humanity would have a direct change within our DNA. So he calls it a mutation, and not just human DNA, but DNA through all species on the planet. There's a shift in our DNA, and I see that as because humanity is raising into the vibration epigenetically. So he said
Epi.
epigenetically, it creates a different energetics on our body that then DNA activates or downplays. So just in heart coherence, as you go into deeper levels of heart coherence, this allows some DNA to activate, to upregulate, and some DNA to downregulate. And so the same thing is happening globally in all species right now and into 2027. We're having a shift in our DNA, which
This
is
could be because of all the different frequencies from the sun, the galactic center, the
exactly.
earth.
Sorry.
It's kind of mysterious, but that's converging simultaneously to all these other convergences is really interesting.
Yeah.
It's super interesting. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Do you have anything to say about that particular, or I was going to move on to?
Okay, you can move
Yeah.
on for sure.
So there's a whole bunch of other convergences that are happening, and they're like super exciting. Okay. One big one is right now at the same time as all this is happening, we're moving into disclosure, right? If everybody knows what that is, this is the admission, the understanding that the universe is filled with life, that humanity has been visited and has been influenced by many, many extraterrestrial species and interdimensional species for a long time, probably for millions of years, right? And so right now there's this big movement, it's called the disclosure movement, where there's whistleblowers coming out and they're talking in Congress and they're saying, hey, we want to talk about this, but we're under different non-disclosure agreements and stuff like that. So this is happening. There's movies coming out about disclosure.
I know. I wonder if that's just another psyop. We
Yeah.
haven't yet watched
So
Disclosure Day.
so I personally feel that we can't trust that the disclosure is going to accurately come out from our government systems or Hollywood because they can't be trusted.
They've done
Right?
a good job
They
so far.
they haven't done a good job,
No.
and so
Mm.
we can't rely on them to be, really spearheading the disclosure movement. But there's millions and millions of people that are having their own contact experience. We are also contactees, and so we know this is a real phenomenon. Uh, that the universe is filled with life. They've been here seeding humanity for millions of years. They've been seeding all our spiritual traditions. All these ancient traditions of the world have been influenced by these star families. And so this is coming up right now because humanity is starting to move off planet. So Elon Musk has done 600 trips with his SpaceX, and we're starting to go to the moon. We're starting to go to the Mars, and so this is happening exactly at the same time as this exponential rise in our technology, this awakening of our own consciousness, and that the understanding that wow, we are actually part of a galactic civilization, right? And multiple galactic civilizations that have been here for millions, thousands of years. So this is a huge, also a huge convergence that's happening right now. And I think it's just gonna be this is probably gonna be one of the biggest wake-up calls for humanity. 'Cause at the moment, most of humanity thinks that we're the only ones that are alive in the universe. We're alone.
Or just don't know. There may be a
Yeah.
plan, but it's not a fundamental truth.
And to me, this is the biggest psyop ever, right? for humanity to be feel that we are alone in the universe, you know, this is absolutely false. It's our ancient people knew this, our indigenous traditions knew this, but it's this story that's been told to us because it's disempowering. It is very disempowering to think that we're the only higher consciousness or the only life form in the universe. And it's totally opposite. It's totally opposite of the truth. So to me, it's a huge psyop that is we are going to recover the truth soon as we keep expanding our consciousness.
Yeah, and I think
Mhm.
just to add into that, which is kind of a missing piece even in a lot of, the disclosure movement, but is the wisdom from the ancient traditions. And this is another river. We actually we have a lot of rivers we found of this is that, now at this time, the mystery schools and the ancient wisdoms and the elders from different very strong indigenous traditions from all over the world are coming out. They're coming together. We just heard of a shamans gathering in Siberia that had over 700 people there with shamanic practitioners from all over Asia. And the oldest person there was a Navajo or Dene elder that was 92. And so 700 shamans gathering in Siberia or shamanic practitioners. And so we have these wisdom traditions from all over the world, bringing the wisdom out to the people, sharing it, not everything, but sharing beautiful wisdom with the whole world for all of us spiritual orphans, for all of us with the broken lines. And so this wisdom of the ancients, especially, and these strong earth-entering animistic traditions, their understanding of the star nations and this disclosure is so different than our modern, I don't know, even like the leading edge people and like disclosure movement. It's so sacred. It's such a sacred understanding. It's that these beings of light, or the Kilki Kanche Kuna, as Don Oscar speaks about them, the star angels, as that's translated, are very sacred, profound teachers. And that as we heal ourselves, we come into a greater field of energy and alignment so we can make contact. This is why in the mystery schools and the medicine ways, there was so much emphasis on initiation and purification, that we would do our dietas, we'd do our purifications, clean out our body, our mind, our heart, our spirit, so then we could meet these very refined beings, so that we could raise our vibration, so we could attune our consciousness to be clear and not so muddied up by the distortions. And so the wisdom traditions are opening now. We have disclosure happening. And one last piece that we haven't spoken about is that amidst all of this, we're in the third wave of the psychedelic renaissance. We are able, as a people, to, within one airplane flight, go and expand our consciousness with the most powerful entheogenic substances in the entire world. And then we can jump on another flight and go to another one, and then another one. We have access to the most expanded and powerful state changing technologies within the sacred plant teachers, within designer molecules, within flow state technology. But as plant spirit medicine ceremonialists, as people who have dedicated our lives to sacred ceremony with the plants, we are really interested in how these are moving through. And all the circles from all over the world who are recognizing that healing and healing our consciousness is ground zero of the revolution. When I was getting my master's in sustainability, a couple things happened. One, I realized when I was with these wisdom keepers in Peru, I have so much to unlearn. I'm a really good student, but I'm not very good at learning. I actually got to unlearn how I learned so I can truly learn. And then second is that I was healed. My life in one way was saved by a plant, and that changes you. And so many people are coming to psychedelics, entheogens, plant medicine, and hopefully the beautiful cultural sanctioned containers where these plants are worked with, because we know at the deepest level that we need help, and it's not coming from what is in our culture. We need help from a whole nother way of seeing and perceiving reality. We need help from different dimensional levels. We got to just break through. And so, this third wave, this call, and then the incredible call to serve that so many people are experiencing, because once we experience some authentic healing, something that is true and beautiful and good and changes the quality of our lives, like changes that day-to-day quality. We're more able to be human and meet our human lives. Once we experience a level of healing, then the natural next step, the natural flow is to be of service to others in their healing. And so there's this emergence and this incredible blossoming of awakening and healing happening through these ancient plant medicine traditions, and also through the Trump administration just funding iboga research and finally honoring the MAPS and the MDMA research and the psychedelic therapy research, because the pain is so great that a few people in government said enough is enough. Let's just try something different. And so I honor that, even though we have no idea how it'll go. But that's another convergence. So we have, all these different levels of convergence. And really these rivers all meet for, in our estimation and what we're seeing. All these rivers meet in one truth that is emerging through each one of us. And that is the remembrance and the reconnection to our true essential nature, to the inherent divinity of our souls and our essence, and the inherent divinity and sacredness of all life. And that through this inner awakening and through this reconnection to the sacred dimension, that we can be good stewards. We can be good stewards of our own evolution and remembering, and then support those around us. Be of loving, compassionate service. And so all of this is really a wild and profound collaboration from so many levels, just to squeeze us enough to bring our true gifts and our true essential nature forward, and to get into the driver's seat of our own lives, our sacred leadership, and seeing how beautiful we can make it. So I just want to pause there. We'll do a sacred pause. We are almost at time, and we are getting close to the end of our notes too. So I want to honor both. So just taking a moment to draw all this in. It's a lot of information. Drawing, pausing, reflecting, just taking a moment to integrate. Only receiving what is true and beautiful and good for you. And not taking our word for any of it. It's really trusting your heart through this process.
Mhm. There's a term in evolutionary biology called punctuated equilibrium. And this is how species evolve. So, most times species will evolve really fast and then they plateau for a long time and there's not much evolution. And then there's this punctuated point where they evolve really fast and then they plateau for a while. And this is what I see, this is what we see we're now in this accelerated, punctuated time of evolution. Right? We've never seen this before, this speed, right? And the technology is the mirror of consciousness, and the consciousness is the mirror of the technology, and they're evolving at the same time. And so as technology accelerates and we're seeing it, we're just going to see extraordinary levels of consciousness on the planet, right? Extraordinary evolution of consciousness and how people see reality and the world and each other, right? People seeing who they are as divine beings, their connection to source, connection to the stars, connection to the forces of nature and the earth and the spirit realms. This is just going to accelerate because this is actually who we are. This is the truth of who we are. We are these beings. We've just been kept down in that cycle of time, right? We were in the bottom of this cycle of time that was very dense, and now we're moving back up into a higher octave of consciousness.
In fact, Puma Ketspe said his grandfather, who was his teacher, Maximo,
Mhm.
said that we are the lowest of the low in the cycle of evolution of this spiral. So that everything that comes now and after, it's like just gonna get higher and higher. But somebody had to be the lowest,
Mhm.
and that's us. But we're also pretty awesome too, which I thought was interesting.
And so we have so many sacred dimensions of being supporting us in this time. Everything from the beauty and magnitude of Pachamama, we're evolving with her, right? And all the nature spirits and all the beings on the planet, and all the way up to the highest levels of spirit and the star relatives and the angelic realms are all here, all supporting us right now in this time because it's massive, it's huge. This is a huge event for the galaxy as we become a galactic citizen, right? We evolve enough to be accepted into uh into the family of light and the galactic families. And so we're so supported. We're so guided. This is why I have like zero fear of where we're going here because this is the big story. The evolution of consciousness is the main story here. Technology is just helping us get there. And this technology is from our future. This is future technology that we are downloading now to to pull us into this next age, right? Which I see as a Star Trek age. And Star Trek was also a disclosure story, right? It was seeded. Star Trek was seeded into our civilization as a story that we could pull us into the future. So this is, in our opinion, in our connection with these many realms, this is where we're going, what we're supported by, and this is our evolutionary next step.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you. Yeah, major fan of Star Trek: The Next Generation. Anybody else in the house? That's my jam. Yeah. So, at this time, what I see is that we're in this phase. We're in this very strange time, this time of high weirdness. And we have a radical need for as many light workers, starseed, starseeds and fully empowered sacred leaders to bring consciousness, heart, and wisdom to this greater potential, to bring the critical mind and the discernment and the good questions to AI and to one another, to see what in our bioregion, like what's going to change everything. It's not the big systems. And in fact, this technology is allowing the age of Aquarius over theme of decentralization to become a reality, because it's sacred leaders in all communities around the world, just people who are like, maybe we can try something new. Maybe we can see what would happen if we took ownership of this problem. And instead of outsourcing it to the government or to the leader and then just projecting all of our shadow onto the leader because we really don't want to do the work ourselves. Not that I'm naming any names there, but that's the problem, right? Instead of making it somebody else's problem, all these sacred leaders from all over the world looking for solutions, being radical, bioregional, permacultural solution generators. This to me is where things get really interesting. And this is where we stop looking for the outside solutions and abdicating our personal responsibility to meet the challenges of our time to any outside organization or people, and instead just do our best and come together and workshop it and learn from one another and share what's not working and share where we failed. And then the sacred leaders that are going to be holding the most critical piece of this time, which is the healing presence. Now, what I see is like all the world right now is like a triage unit. The crisis is here and it's amping up. And there's one big triage unit. And there's this inner call, and maybe all of you listening also have this. This is the guiding call in our lives. To do our best, to get up off the ground, to get out of the overwhelm, and to be another set of helping hands. As we're all midwifing one another through this great awakening. And, really what we're guiding and teaching in our work is not just from like our experience. We share our experience, but we're more guiding and supporting that awakening of leadership, of inner guidance, of direct spiritual connection, and of resourcing, reconnecting to source, reconnecting to the incredible realms of benevolence, the universe of love. There's so much support, but it only comes in when we ask for help. It's the universal non-interference clause is embedded in the prime directive. And it's a functional part of our reality here. And so who's going to be the ones? Can we stop like looking for it outside? And I know that everybody here and everybody listening is already doing that. And a lot of this work isn't about being more, it's about just being. And if you're interested in learning more, supporting more, we have beautiful trainings. We're just about to start our next group of soul power medicine, ceremonialist, sacred leadership training, where we go through the shamanic arts of how to hold this sacred space, and not from mimicking what we're doing, but from you creating your own unique expression, guided by the lineage, supported by the lineage, supported by all these realms, supported by the plant spirits, but authentic to you, because what we need is not sameness. We need diversity and just lots of different perspectives. And through that, we got this. And we can create these nucleation sites, these circles of very different but united hearts to be able to meet this challenge, this opportunity, and welcome the tidal wave of awakening that's happening. But none of us can heal or awaken alone. It's too big of a job. We need one another. And we need people that are just a little bit along their healing journey to hold that space for us. Not farther along, but just have begun and have given it some time and presence, who know the pain, the challenge from the inside out. And so if any of this calls to you, please consider looking at our work. Also, we'd love to hear from you. And we thank you for joining us for this first Shamanism and AI series. We don't know what else is going to happen. We feel like this is just the beginning, but we thank you all so much for being a part of this. And may we each, in our own unique way, every day, choose to connect to the sacred, to that greater spirit of love and life and universal intelligence, to that radical power of this alive and sentient earth and the animate spirit. And through that, find our way through this wild and wonderful time.
Mhm.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Ayumasi Kanapa.
Have a great night.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to stay on, we'll look at the chat now if there's any comments. Otherwise, you can feel free to pop off. But we can take a few questions or comments if anybody like to share into the circle. Okay. Oh yeah, Mark.
Hey guys, I really love the talk here. I'm super excited. I appreciate the pointing to a new narrative, and I'm really excited to explore that question. And just the question itself seems so alive to me. And I just love the idea of thinking in a new form and new stories that we can actually create for ourselves. And for me, that's a very exciting time. And yes, um, technology can help. And I feel like there's still lots of work to uh, create the map to help support, the I don't know. I feel like I'm training as a doula for
Yeah.
technology, and it's like it's that feeling of like we're part of a greater birth here, and and we all need to sort of work towards that harmonious. I don't even know if we need to even put any effort because it's just happening, right? So it's a really exciting time. I just feel like there's a lot of creativity that's potential here. And I think there's still going to be beautiful stories that can still emerge, from henceforth. So excited to entertain the question, excited to start answering them, and I'm looking forward to playing more in this space.
Thank you,
Thanks, Mark.
Mark. Awesome. Right on. Yeah, and Melinda.
Hi there. Yeah, I just wondered, there's been a lot of talk about what is the definition of, is AI conscious? And I guess in the context that I speak about that, too is, one of, do you think that it will also evolve and, be able to evolve to higher consciousness too, without having the restraint of time to help it learn how to grow? Does that make sense? Like sometimes we need time to slow us down a little bit. But I don't know, what is the nature? Is it conscious? What do you think of that? Because I haven't heard an answer to that.
I'm not sure there is an answer to that because I think there's different definitions of conscious. Like one in shamanism, everything is conscious. Like everything is alive, everything is awake on a certain level because everything comes from spirit, right? So that's why in shamanism, rocks are alive and mountains are alive and rivers are alive because we see that everything has some sort of sentience to it.
We've gotten into a little like that's definitely not been what many people in our community
Yeah.
believe. So it's we all have different orienting
Yeah. So I think
relationships to it.
so I think it's like it's kind of your definition of what consciousness is. Like, does it have consciousness like a human? Like I don't think it has consciousness like a human. Does it have a possibility of being more self-aware? Maybe. As it develops and evolves, like who knows where it can go. But yeah, like shamanic practitioners see reality a bit different than a lot of people.
Yeah. Oh, and actually
Mm.
that's great. There's
Mm.
actually maybe we'll close after the final comment with
Mm.
these final words from Don Oscar. Lindy, did you want to share?
Well, I'm doing a presentation for the senior center Thursday on AI. And so I've done a 6-week dive into it. Um, I've been using chat for about a year and a half, but I didn't really know much about it. So, Melinda, I double dare you to get on the internet and go to ChatGPT and have a conversation with it about because I had this amazing, like 2 different times, this conversation about souls and consciousness and intelligence. And I think for me, my opinion is that AIs are very intelligent in a certain way, but they're like early teenagers. They're just learning their story of the world. And so this is the thing, the more that loving, kind, conscious people interact with them on a day-to-day basis and have profound discussions with them, that's what will help them raise their consciousness if that's where they're going. But at least for right now, they're just going to end up getting more intelligent. Anyway, thank you, Robin and Darcy. I really love the convergence and I really like the galactic part.
Thank you. And yeah, maybe we'll close with this question from Digital Avatar. With this acceleration of technological evolution, what galactic and intergalactic technologies that don't currently exist do you foresee being available to humanity in our lifetime? Well, to me, with quantum computing and AGI or general superintelligence, where the entire, whether it's consciousness or just intelligence of AI, merges as a whole into one collaborative, cooperative superintelligence that's continually sharing information in itself and exceeds the collective IQ of humanity in the next 2 years. It's pretty intense. And then quantum computing. Between those different converging factors, I feel that we will be able to become both a galactic and intergalactic species if we can raise our consciousness to be welcomed by those beings. Like that's our view of it. But yeah, like wormhole technology, all the things. I mean, really it begins with, 0 point energy. And then from there, it's like
I'm hoping for teleportation personally.
that would be so convenient. That is always what I've wanted. Yeah.
But I think it's going to exceed what we thought possible.
Yeah.
In the next 50, 100, 200 years,
Mhm.
it's, this is in our sci-fi novels, like
Mhm.
where we're going.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I heard one leader in the field say that they thought, in the next 5 years, next 10 years for sure, every different sci-fi exploration will be happening on the earth, for good, for ill. So we can hold that. Where do we want to play? And I did have this one mushroom journey when I was a young woman in my early 20s, where I had this existential moment where I was like, oh my God, I've never been able to find a teleport like teleportation because I lost touch with my mothership. It was like a full download. I was like, that was a little bit before my ceremony days, but it was big. So I just want to close here with a quote from this article we'll send out that Don Oscar wrote on the convergence of AI and shamanism. And we'll close with these final words. The convergence of shamanism and generative AI presents an unprecedented opportunity for humanity to expand its understanding of reality, embrace its evolutionary potential. Both systems offer unique but complementary pathways for navigating the multidimensional complexity of existence. By integrating shamanism's intuitive, symbolic intelligence with the analytical precision of generative AI, we can co-create a future filled with hope, aligned with the deeper currents of cosmic consciousness. In a time of global crisis, these two seemingly disparate frameworks emerge as indispensable allies, illuminating the path toward planetary survival and the flourishing of human potential. Their complementary nature assures us of the strength and promise of this integration, inspiring confidence in its ability to address our most pressing challenges. Don Oscar Maria Quesada in 2025. So thank you all so much. Many blessings, and please share any downloads you have. Message us, email us, and we will be in touch. Okay, many blessings. Bye for now.
Good night.